Interesting.
Yeah, but
I'm surprised that you're not much of a sports guy because I feel like it would kind of like go together with the rest of your personality to be
it
involved in
really,
sports.
so I got very into UFC. I like it a lot. I'm not die hard, but I definitely enjoy it a lot.
It's just like violence.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely, there's a part of me that does like violence. There's no debate about it. I don't promote it, but first of all, everyone likes violence to a degree. Some people are more open about it, and some people are like, oh, yeah. Everyone wants to see Keanu Reeves shove a fork up someone's like nose and then rip his nostril out and then feed it to his like dog. Like people like to see the most violent, insane shit on TV. But if it happens in front of them or like they know about it personally, it's horrible. But as long as it's not real and it's not a movie,
Do you think that's why people are so fascinated with like
humans love these things. Like what do you think people are so into gladiators and people?
but even the TV shows nowadays, you ever notice the TV shows nowadays like are very largely centered in general, they've always been centered like this. So I think lately it switched around a little
especially
bit.
in America, by the way.
But,
How America it promotes peace so much. Meanwhile, they have their noses in everyone else's business. They're the big daddy, the big papa. But at the same time, our movies are the craziest, most.
Well, yeah, we're the best. At
We
the end
have
of the day
to
is,
overdo
we're
everything.
still like, regardless of politics and stuff, America is still respected as being the best marketing in the world. Nobody does marketing like Americans do.
Sure.
Regardless of whether people agree with us politically or not, it's nothing. It's not the same thing as, oh, we make better cars. It's not that kind of argument. It's people understand that when it comes to marketing, consumerism, America. I don't know if you've ever had a chance. I don't know if CNN, like, I don't know if a letter network could theoretically produce or co-produce something, but Netflix came out with something called like they had different decades, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and they would go pretty much throughout those decades in the course of that season or that episode. I think it was a season. I think each season was its own decade, and they would go through the various different big events and things that shaped up that decade. And what I've noticed is that with the 90s and the 2000s, it largely centered around TV. The 80s, the 70s, I believe there was a 60s. I don't remember.
What do you mean by
offhand.
largely? What do you mean by that? Because no, how is it different now?
So for example, when they were doing the season on the 70s, they were discussing the Vietnam War. They were talking about politics, but they were also talking about the advent and the widespread usage of debt and credit cards. Because before credit cards, like, your debt was pretty much, hey, I went to the neighborhood grocer, and if the owner was nice and he was a charitable guy, he gave me, credit.
Credit, right?
But most of the time, there wasn't this concept of credit. Like, if you didn't have money, like, you were screwed. So there was a lot of good to be done with credit and credit cards, but people, and especially now, people have really gotten buried under different, mounds of credit issues.
How does this but how does the credit
every decade was something else, and they would talk, like, in the 70s, they would talk about American consumerism and credit cards and electronics getting big, and then the 80s was electronics getting bigger, and the U.S. Contra problem with Reagan and Iran and everything back in the day, or maybe that was the 70s, but when the point was really, as it got to the 90s and the 2000s, most of the season of those decades revolved around TV and entertainment. Meaning they weren't talking about some of the other stuff. They just kind of went straight to entertainment. And if you look at the TV shows now, they've been like very superhero oriented for several years now, which I think is very lazy, lackadaisical writing and producing.
Why would you say that? That's a big thing to say. I think that takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't say I didn't think it doesn't take a lot of work. I think the writing, it doesn't take a lot of work, especially because the writing's already there. Essentially, the comic books have been around for Marvel and DC forever.
I hear that, but I would have to disagree. I think that it takes a lot of creativity to put these things together.
Well,
some of them, I mean, to be honest though, I'm not going to go hard in an argument because I'm not a big like comic movie whatever guy. Like, I'm just not that into it. I do think we're getting a bit off topic though.
We're just going all around. But anyway, that's what people like, that kind of violence, because Americans are into lawyer shows, cop shows, firefighter shows, and like rescue stuff. Like, they're into the violence. People love like case files,
Well, you
and
know
the
what it also
X-Files
is?
and
You know what it
different
also
stuff.
is?
They're fascinated by
You know
it.
what it also is? People generally, now that we live, for the most part, in America, we lived in civilized societies. We don't encounter anything that crazy within our daily lives.
Correct.
Fight or flight used to be a pack of hyenas might eat us alive. We're running around with spears and little leaves on our crotches, which sounds kind of fun in a weird way, huh?
Yeah, maybe
Especially with you. I'd have
running around with sharp objects like
I'd have
spears.
I'd have a blast spearing you in the ass.
Oh wow! Thank you very much.
Chubby unicorn.
I'll make sure to send the memo to my mile.
For any of you that don't know, a mole is the man responsible for cutting off the foreskin,
Circumciser,
and then putting it in the soup.
Circumcisor,
circumcision soup. If anyone watched Meet the Fockers, they would understand that.
That's an old school movie.
Did you watch that?
Do you remember?
But we'll remember what?
Those old school, like the I call them yeshiva comedies, like the comedy movies we used to watch like in the yeshiva years. Like
Mrs. Doubtfire was one of my favorites.
That's a classic.
God, I love that movie.
That's a classic. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Love it. I know almost all of the words to that movie. I've seen that movie so many times. Love it.
When was the last time you've seen it?
It's been probably about not that long ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Love it. I can watch that movie. Like,
is that your favorite movie?
It's up there. My favorite. I would say one of my favorite movies of all time is Saving Private Ryan, though.
Interesting,
because it's an older movie. It's not. It's from the 90s, I think, or maybe early 2000s, 90s. But it is 90s, one of the most realistic seeming movies.
Yeah,
by far. Like, it's so real. It's not overdone. It's not. It just doesn't have all these fake.
They just came out with that World War I movie in 1917. It looked pretty interesting. I don't know if you've had a chance to see a preview or whatnot, but 1917. It's essentially another war movie.
I'll check it out.
But I like war movies specifically over like general fighting stuff. But you know what? I really wish that they would get a little bit more creative. I haven't seen movies of this style in a while, but Civil War, Revolutionary War, one of my favorite movies, Master and Commander, which is a naval fight between the French, I believe, and the English naval forces in like the 1800s.
Sounds cool.
That's a great movie. I think Russell Crowe was in there. Yeah. That's a great movie. I
love seeing people on horseback with swords. See, like nowadays,
they never do movies like that anymore.
War is not as exciting as it used to be. Like now, war is just like, all right, we're just gonna kill 8,000 people.
Yeah, like, the weapons are too good.
Yeah, it's just too like people don't matter that much. Like that's the shitty part. You can be this insane jacked soldier that trains forever. You know, you're a Navy SEAL. You are an incredible
and then a
soldier.
Drone takes you out.
No, either a drone or just some guerrilla fighter who shoots a gun over a wall, just pops you in the head, gets lucky. All that training gone. But like if you were, and even back in the day, if you were an incredible soldier, someone can spear you or get you with a sword when you're not looking. But talent mattered more back then.
Have you ever gone archery?
But wait a sec.
Okay.
Do you know what it really mattered back then? Like you being a stronger guy in those kind of wars really made a difference because you had to face people head on.
Yeah.
So if you're a scrawny little guy who doesn't know how to wield a sword or ride a horse, and a guy comes after you and he's riding that horse and he knows how to
turn
that sword. No, but a guy knows how to slice your head off with one. You're done. But nowadays the gun is so much more. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still strategy. There's still a lot of brain involved.
Yeah.
And in many ways, there's more brain involved now
than in brute strength.
For sure. I mean, wars are more technical now. There's a lot more brain involved, but it's also I think it matters more on a large scale now. But as an individual soldier now, you're a lot less. It depends how you look at it. There's so many ways to look at it. Okay, you have a massive gun. You could take out 50 people or more. But you don't one-on-one. It's like the size, your size and your strength. Those things don't matter nearly as much.
Well, that's really like World War II is really when technology started, like for wartime, started booming. Because before then, like people, like I know World War One, they were using like gas and stuff like that, like some crazy stuff, mustard gas and who knows what. But they were largely, and there were tanks that showed up towards the end of the war. But from my understanding, toward the first half of World War One was largely like horseback. Was cavalry, straight up cavalry. Can you imagine America running into Afghanistan right now with horses and swords? Actually, they probably would have been out of there ages ago if they would have done
But also, it's so much more badass. So much more badass. Like I saw Putin there's a picture of Putin on a horse.
Yeah.
He's not in crazy shape. But that's the thing about him. He looks like he's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like they have that body, which is, it's almost more badass than being jacked. You know when you see like those big Russian guys where they still have the muscle, the shoulders, the back, the chest, the arm, but then they have a belly.
So you.
And it's kind of, yeah, exactly.
Or actually me, honest, both of us.
But it's kind of more,
Yeah,
we're not
that's-
there. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're still young. When you're like 40 and you have a big gold necklace, tons of hair, and like, you just have a belly, but big, whatever. It's more intimidating than a six pack because it's like, I eat what I want, but I still lift 480 pounds and I'll eat you. Like there's something more you get. It's because you don't even care as much about the way you look. You're just a big, strong animal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you don't care much about the appearance. You care more about
intimidating. It's intimidating a little bit. And
yeah,
besides,
it's more intimidating than the full on like chiseled physique.
Well, you described like an Italian mafioso is essentially what you did.
Pretty much.
Big gold chain,
or Russian, or there's so many. Well, there's so many different groups that
lots of
look
hairy
like
people.
That. No, there's so many ethnicities that have that have that look really. But back to the violent thing. Though.
Have you ever gone? Have you ever done archery?
Never.
Interesting.
Never. I actually want to do it.
Is this something that would interest you?
Yeah, for sure. I would actually want to do like archery hunting.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. What about axe throwing? That's been all the rage now.
Still never
so
did
many
that.
of those places.
Never did that
yet. I'm not sure what I think about that. Like I know I know what would like how that goes down. I can't see that being as enjoyable as I feel like it should be. I don't know.
Yeah,
why.
I could see that getting boring because you throw the axe and then what? The thing that's cool about axe throwing is if you can meaning like you can throw an axe at like a mannequin with one throw and the whole head comes off. Or like
what David Blaine does with like a playing card.
He's insane. But dude,
nuts.
But back into the violent thing. I think Americans love. I was talking about fight or flight and all that. I think Americans love violence so much, and there are other countries that are very civilized as well. But Americans generally, they go to work, they go home, they take their kids to soccer practice, they make love. And that's it. And it's the same thing every single day. And they have their little stresses, their little first world problems.